So this is a bit of an older article, but it's something I always wanted to talk about because we have to admit one thing about PlayStation. It's a far more recognized brand around the entire world. I say that because PlayStation has a history that's only second to Nintendo. And so when I see articles talking about how the PS5 is going to sell or how the Xbox Series X is going to sell, I usually like to read them in jest and have a look at the arguments on both sides. But with this article, I can actually see they put some thought into it and explain why they think the PlayStation 5 is going to sell more than their competitors. And it's not just an opinion piece like a lot of the articles actually mention. Instead, they use opinions and statistics to actually show that the PS5 is going to sell more than the Xbox Series X. And while I'm a massive, and I mean massive Xbox fan, I do realize the disadvantage Xbox has when it comes to selling consoles outside of North America. So with that said, let's get into these articles and see if what is said actually holds water, because one of the biggest things people love to talk about during a new console generation is the power behind the consoles, the price they'll come in, and of course, who will sell more units the entire generation. It's something that everyone talks about every single generation, and it's something that's been a huge talking point ever since Xbox came on the scene and directly competed with PlayStation's console. So let's see if people actually want to buy the PS5 over the Xbox Series X. But first, like always, if you like the video, hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support is greatly appreciated. Alright, so let's get into this because there's a lot of information, and like I said, this isn't just some guy's opinion on the matter. It's coming from some pretty credible people that study analytics and talk about a lot of the advantages that the PlayStation 5 has over the Xbox Series X. And we aren't talking about hardware advantages, just mindshare and brand recognition, and that to me means a lot more than most things when it comes to selling a product. You can't just sell a product with any kind of name attached to it. You need to have it recognized and trusted by the masses, which I think PlayStation 5 has in spades going into next generation. Here's what the article has to say. Games industry research firm DFC Intelligence shared an updated forecast on next generation console sales, specifically focused on the struggle between Sony's PS5 and Microsoft's Xbox Series X. According to the forecast up until 2024, Sony's console is expected to outsell the Xbox Series X by roughly 2-1. So the first thing I want to point out is nothing about this is confirmed. I have to say that because these are just projections for the next generation consoles in the first 4 years they'll be out on the market. And I have a feeling that this study by DFC Intelligence is using history as a way to gather their information. Because if we remember this last generation, the Xbox One was outsold by the PlayStation 4 by a super wide margin, more than 2-1. So if you take that into account, you have to see that the Xbox in some ways is gaining some sort of ground. But to me, that's not enough, and it has to change if Xbox wants it to change, which the article points out when it says this. In recent months, it has become clear that Sony and Microsoft are pursuing two very different strategies in the video game industry. The likely result is that the upcoming Sony PlayStation 5 should significantly outsell the Microsoft Xbox Series X. However, Microsoft may have the long-term winning battle plan. And this is what I mean when I say if Xbox actually wants to change what they're doing, because it's been very easy to see that Xbox isn't going the traditional route when it comes to the next generation consoles. Instead, it seems that they want to take a completely different direction, which includes not really caring about the console sales. And it's something that the article brings up here when it talks about the PlayStation 5 significantly outselling Microsoft's Xbox Series X. Now, the one very interesting thing that this article mentions is that the long-term plan might be in the favor of the Xbox Series X. That's something I want to dive into because this is just my opinion now, but I have a feeling that Xbox doesn't care about the short-term gain of their console. What I mean by that is they don't want to have a console race in sales when the generation starts, because that's an old way of thinking, and it's quite frankly a tired way of thinking, because it's something that's been going on for the last 25 years. And over those years, new technology has come and gone, and it's allowed gaming to evolve into something much bigger than just a console. I say that because one of the biggest quotes I've heard major influencers in the gaming industry say is that whichever console reaches 10 million units sold first will win the generation, or put themselves in a position to win that generation. Well, that worked back in the day when you had people buy your console to sell your software, and that's something that Sony is still doing and banks on for their next generation. Yet all the while, Xbox doesn't have that problem and instead is taking out the buy-in option of a $500 piece of hardware. Obviously, I'm talking about Xbox Game Pass and xCloud, which are going to be such massive differences when the next generation kicks off. I mean, if we're talking about 10 million consoles sold, we have to talk about how many people are subscribed to services like Xbox Game Pass and PS Now. And from what we know, Game Pass has over 10 million people subscribed as of a few months ago. Currently, I would venture to guess it's far more than that and probably closer to 15 million. All the while, PS Now is at 2 million or a little over that. The difference is staggering and something I think a lot of people need to recognize. When we talk about 10 million units, we should also talk about the services attached to those units. For Xbox to break that 10 million number without even releasing their next generation console shows that they have advantages in other areas that PlayStation just might not be able to compete in. But that doesn't mean the PS5 is dead on arrival. Of course not. That couldn't be further from the truth. Instead, I think this benefits PlayStation, and honestly, it benefits Xbox because they've created a whole new market demographic, especially since Sony wants to sell more consoles. Here's what the article says. The latest DFC Intelligence video game console forecasts have the PlayStation 5 outselling the Xbox Series X by a margin of 2-1. The PS5 looks likely to be Sony's third 100 million unit selling console game system. Microsoft is trying the best with Xbox Series X, but the past few months have revealed they are just too far behind Sony. Consumer brand preference is strongly towards PlayStation. As a piece of hardware, there is nothing Xbox Series X is doing to change that perception. Now, I know that Sony will most likely have their third 100 million unit sold console with the PS5 because they won this generation by such a wide margin, it was almost embarrassing. But I will also recognize the brand recognition between the two companies is very different. In North America, I would say it's about equal in recognition between Xbox and PlayStation, if not a little more on the Xbox side because it sells extremely well in America and it's a brand a lot of people in the country enjoy. But outside of that, PlayStation dominates almost every other region. So it only makes sense that Sony's PlayStation would sell far more units than the Xbox Series X, because they're in more territories, and the territories both are in, PlayStation dominates, which the article points out by saying this. Sony is also a global powerhouse in video games. Microsoft is only strong in English-speaking markets. The Xbox has no presence in Japan and is weak in most of Europe. Sony's strength in global consumer electronics distribution has been too much for Microsoft to overcome, even after 20 years of concerted effort. And this is where everything comes full circle, because while I think Xbox has a great marketing strategy and they have the most powerful console on the market by far, and not to mention they'll most likely be competitive in price, the only thing they need to do is gain the trust of gamers worldwide like Sony has. Especially after a generation like we just had, where PlayStation brought out some of the best exclusive games I've ever played. Things like that builds trust with gamers, and it also helps them feel secure in the purchase they make. Is Xbox trying to win gamers over with back compat along with making everything from the Xbox One usable on the Series X? Yes, they are, and that will gain them some trust, but at the end of the day, it's all about the games, and there's something that Xbox needs to really knock out of the park when they launch their new games. They need high-rated games loved by everyone like Sony has. That will help Xbox break into other regions around the world, which I think they will do with some of the new games they've announced. But I'll leave you with this last quote from the article that gives Xbox gamers a little bit of hope for the future. Here's what's said. Still, the forecast isn't all doom and gloom for Microsoft. In fact, as briefly mentioned in the first sentence, the analyst at DFC Intelligence also noted that Microsoft's strategy may be a winner in the long term. As the video game audience is nowadays much broader than just console, while the Xbox Series X may only manage decent sales compared to the PlayStation 5's estimated 100 million plus potential, the fact that the critical Game Pass subscription service has now been fully untethered with respect to Xbox consoles could give Microsoft access to the much larger PC and mobile audience too. And there you have it, everyone. Both consoles have their pros and cons, but at the end of the day, I do believe the PS5 is going to sell more consoles. But I also think Microsoft isn't just going to lie down. I think they're going to compete in other areas, much like the article points out here. But enough of what I think about this. Tell me what you think about all of this. Do you think the PS5 will outsell the Xbox Series X 2-1? What other factors contribute to the Xbox Series X potential low sale numbers? Does PlayStation have the mindshare and trust of all gamers around the world? What can Xbox do to break into some of these other regions that PlayStation dominates? Which console are you buying day one? Go down below and let me know. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support helps out the channel more than you know. And give me a follow on Twitter at Zalker87. I'm always on there talking games and sharing my latest videos. Plus, I love interacting with everyone there, so get on Twitter and let's talk about gaming. Also, follow me on Xbox Live. My gamertag is Zalker87, just like my channel name. See what games I'm playing, and let's compete in achievements for the month. Right now, I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima, Fall Guys, and a bunch of other games. I'm having a lot of fun playing co-op games with my friends because I'm honestly just waiting for Marvel's Avengers. That game comes out next week, and I can't wait to play it. I'm looking forward to it. I enjoyed the beta a lot, and then I stopped playing it because I wanted to save everything for the launch of the game when it comes out, and I get to play it on my Xbox One X. But what are you playing? Go down below and let me know. Are you working through your backlog, or are you playing something new? And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, enjoy your gaming. Later.